You violated the law by even considering it. It's against the law.
Could you ask him to leave the room?
It's against the law, what you just even considered. And I'm glad that you guys didn't violate the law. I'll leave on my record.
Chairman, let me say one thing. If you read the court order, the judge
Enjoy
specifically.
your communism, slaves.
This protest is being recorded for quality assurance. You can check it out at darkdocs.com.
You want data? And I'm sorry, yes, Celebration K-8 closed because of whatever's going on there. I said, but I need factual data now from that school. Who's got COVID, what their age is, why they got it, were they vaccinated, were they not vaccinated? I want all that. You guys want to fight us? Well, we're fighting back. I want all this information, and I want it by Friday of this week, please.
And what I'm saying is that if they don't want to do that, then we'll go the other way with it. It's like, fine, you want us to violate HIPAA and give away all of our medical information, be required to give up all of our medical information, that's fine. When was the last time you had an HIV test? Do you currently have any sexually transmitted diseases? And it's like, that's the level. There is no difference. Yeah.
So I'm hoping that everybody that signed up to speak says all kinds of different levels of things.
Yeah.
And brings it all up.
The smoking gun, the big thing that I brought up at the last one we were at was, according to the Parents' Bill of Rights, that's it. What's your name?
Jason. My name's Jason, and I'm tired of the government and them trying to take control, and I'm tired of the tyranny. This is my kid. I decide what happens with her, not the government and not the school board.
That's right.
I'm going to stand for what I believe in, and wrong is wrong and right is right. I'm going to stand on the side of right.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your courage.
Thank you, sir.
I'm filming for darkdocs.com. Do you want to say a couple words while you're here today?
I'm just here for the kids. Someone's got to.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming out. Definitely.
Where were you from?
Darkdocs.com. DOX. We're mostly an archive of videos, audio files, PDF documents, and more, exposing corruption globally. But of course, this is part of that. So we're doing a lot of medical tyranny stuff these days.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
We're maxed out, so
153 people?
we're maxed out at our capacity.
153 people?
So we're maxed out at what we're allowing in here.
No, according to the Florida Sunshine Laws, you're required to have 153 people in here.
No, sir, it's not.
Yes, according to the maximum capacity of 153 people,
Sir,
the Florida Sunshine Laws requires you to not impede on the media.
it's right there. And you're not media.
And I'm also signed up to speak, so
Well, we'll call
don't
you
touch
in.
me, door.
Please move. Thank you.
So as you can see here, they just violated the Florida Sunshine Law by not allowing 153 people into that room. There's not 153 people in that room right now. It says it right there on the wall, max capacity, 153 people. Yep, I already signed up as media, darkducks.com, they didn't let me in.
It's not necessary.
Yeah. Whether you're media or not, it's Florida Sunshine Laws. 153 people that are citizens or residents here, they're required to be inside.
Let media in to load that up.
Yeah.
But not from you. You don't have representation.
He assaulted me. It was light, but look up the definition of assault. He laid his hands on me.
Did he touch you?
Yeah? Trying to shut the door on me.
Starting, so can we just...
Dr. Alexander, before I get started, I was just wondering if love is something that you were taught to measure in medical school. Mr. Chairman, please. Let me ask this. Can you give me what the death rate was for Osceola County?
I don't know that offhand.
You don't know anything!
Excuse me, Mr. Lawyer, just a minute. Excuse me. I know this is a very emotional issue for everybody. We're going to conduct this meeting tonight in a sane, calm manner. We're going to let the people that are speaking speak, whether it's you or the board members, Dr. Pace, or the people on the phone. So I am going to ask for decorum. And I am going to ask that we work through this meeting so we can hear everybody's opinion and everybody's viewpoint. Thank you. Mr.
I
O'Brien.
don't know the death rate offhand. That's a number I can certainly look at.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander. If I may continue, Dr. Alexander.
We're seeing lower death rates because it's happening in younger people. But our hospitals are full. In the case of larger hospitals, there's actually a shortage of beds.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander. I'm wondering if you know what the hospitalization rate is for those percentages in Osceola that you mentioned for people taking the test.
In which age group?
Under 18, if you have it.
In under 18, it would be a fairly low number. We had one fatality in our hospital due to COVID a couple of weeks ago. We've got a few children on ventilators now. The good news is we've not had any kids die since the one about 3-4 weeks ago.
Dr. Alexander, are you allowed to wear a cloth mask in the hospital?
No. The recommendation in the hospital for OSHA is that we're now to wear a medical grade mask in the hospital.
Do you know why they would make that regulation?
That's an interesting question. I think there was some belief that a medical grade mask might be superior in environments with a high rate of exposure to people with COVID.
Dr. Alexander, are surgeons allowed to wear cloth masks when performing surgery?
No, surgeons usually wear a medical mask, either a level 2 or a level 3 mask during surgery, depending on the procedure that's being performed.
Dr. Alexander, thank you. Dr. Cadilla or Dr. Alexander, whomever feels like answering this question. We currently have a higher than 90% compliance rate in wearing masks in school. If we increase that compliance rate, let's say 5%, because it's between numbers that I've heard are 94 to 97%. Can you tell me what the reduction in infection rate would be?
It's probably not linear with the exposure, because again, few people one person can expose an awful lot of people. So I think it would be hard to calculate that, but at a minimum, it would be proportional to the number of people that are, the increase in masking.
So are you telling me that if we increase our compliance with masks to 99%, that 99% of our students would not get COVID?
No, what it would do is reduce the risk at school.
By 5%, you would say? If we increase by 5%, you said it was relative.
No, yeah, it would probably increase by more than that. We could probably pull up some epidemiologic modeling, but I suspect it would be significantly higher than that. Remember that the reason for masking at school is that when you put on a mask, you're protecting other people. So that the benefit of masking is to prevent transmission. So what would hopefully happen is that we would not only decrease the number of children getting infected, but it would decrease the rate of parents at home getting infected.
Dr. Alexander, can you tell me what the percentage of people who got flu this year is?
The rate of influenza was actually very, very low this season.
Please, I've asked you.
Dr. Alexander, feel free to continue.
So the rate of influenza was quite low this season, which is largely attributed to the use of masking and social distancing.
Okay, and also, you mentioned that our testing rate has gone from 26% to 21% to 18.2%.
Well, that's the rate of positives.
Right.
So, there is some gradual decline of positive rates in the community. In Central Florida, the Florida Hospital Association has reported over the last week a small decline in the number of hospitalizations.
Dr. Alexander, may I ask my question?
Please do.
With that number having gone down from 26 to 21 to 18, without any change in policy regarding masks, can you tell me that if we continue not wearing masks or with the same 94 to 97% compliancy, that it will not continue to go down regardless of any new policies?
I don't have a crystal ball, but what I can tell you is that the number of cases that we have will be lower if people are masking. And if we reduce the total number of cases because we have masking, this will hopefully decrease the number of people in the hospital, the number of people missing work, the number of people dying, and that's, I think, what we're supposed to be doing.
Do you have, Dr. Alexander, any scientific, not just generally speaking, but do you have any scientific research that tells me if we have 5 kids and X amount have masks, what the infection rate will be? In other words, can you tell the parents that are in this room that if we mask every student that we will no longer have COVID, or in the inverse, that if we do nothing, that we will not continue to see a decrease, as you mentioned, from 26 to 18% already?
So what we will see, right, is masking reduces the basic reproduction number of an infection. Let me draw a parallel for you. If you've got a bank account and we start off with an interest rate of 2%, your money grows at a certain rate. And when we saw the first appearance of COVID-19, the basic reproduction number, which is equivalent to interest rate, was about 2. So that with every cycle, one person infected 2 people, who then infected 4, infected 8, and on it grew. With the Delta variant, we believe that the basic reproduction number is now somewhere between 5 and 8. So what that means is now one person affects 8 people, infects 64 people. So this is a much more infectious virus. So when we put a mask on somebody, we reduce that effective basic reproduction number. So masking can only reduce the risk of transmission. The rest of the world believes this. I don't know why Americans don't, but the rest of the world believes this is true.
Dr. Alexander, you mentioned that it reduces the transmission. Can you tell me by how much?
So estimates are somewhere in the neighborhood of 50%.
So with masks,
Mr. Yates, can they hear me in the vestibule outside?
Yes, sir, they can.
I'm going to ask you, those that are not in the room with us, if you could please hold it down a little bit so we can hear what is going on in the meeting room. Thank you.
So, to turn it around the other way, would you rather have a bank account that gave you 8% interest or 4% interest?
Dr. Alexander, I can see that you do not have a CPA, but regardless, if we can stick to medicine, if that's okay.
This is an analogy.
Dr. Alexander, if I may continue with my question.
Mr. Arnett, you're out of order a little bit. Please do
I'm
not.
sorry, did you wake up at the last meeting? I didn't hear you at all.
Please do not badger consultant.
I continue with my question.
That's what I think.
I think it's pretty clear who runs this meeting. We run this meeting. You let him talk.
You're elected panel.
I have just taken control of the room. Please continue.
Do we have a right to?
Yes, let me just say.
Can I just say
You are
something?
public servants. You do as we say.
Absolutely.
Excuse me.
Correct.
We are here to listen to you tonight.
Wonderful.
We're here to have a discussion. We are not here to be yelled at. We're not here to be belittled. We're going to listen to every different viewpoint of the people who have signed in to speak tonight. But I'd like you to give us the respect to listen to the board members ask questions, and listen to the people who are responding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, when our doctors were here, you gave them 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah, who the hell are these people? They're posting fake evidence. I have about 5 or 6 so far.
We're not going to talk. We're not.
Cases that they are lying about. This is misinformation. You can find it out at shortcuts.com, childlifenet.com, canmatch.org. We're sick of this. Our children are being abused every day that they're forced to put on a mask. It's child abuse. Kids are dying from bacterial pneumonia. Look it up.
Sir, I'm going to give you one more warning. If you scream at us again, I am going to have ask you to leave the room, because we're not.
I said my piece until I get on the stand. Thank you.
Mr. Arborio?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to point out that at the last meeting, we spent 4 hours being heckled by the audience, and you did not utter one word about it. You did not, you didn't control, there's not a person, sir, I'm speaking, and I am elected, so if I may continue what I'm saying, not the parliamentarian, not the chairman, not the superintendent bothered at all to speak out against people in the audience heckling a board member at that point in time. So this being slightly more important than anyone's job, I think we should have a little bit of patience from the room. Dr. Alexander.
Yes, sir.
You were mentioning a 50% number in terms of the masks reducing. Do you hold to that number, that 50%? If you wear a mask, you're reducing the spread of infection by 50%?
Well, as you can imagine, it's a very hard thing to study, but it's probably in that neighborhood, yes.
I see. Is that a prognosis? Is that how you deliver a prognosis in your practice, by telling people probably?
If you're smart, yes, that's what scientists do. They don't speak in absolutes.
I see. So then you can, however, somehow absolutely tell me that masks are contributing to ending this COVID virus.
Well, masks are part of a collection of things.
Is that an absolute answer, sir?
Social distancing, yes.
Okay. So I guess one of us is not smart, as you just mentioned, that's the how you draw a conclusion whether someone is smart or not, by speaking in absolutes. Dr. Alexander, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate your trip.
My pleasure.
This is a political dance here, right? There's no purpose for us to be meeting on this day. There's no reason, there's no valid reason for an emergency meeting to be called to preempt even the case in which we're using to make any new policy.
Amen.
It just not only, I'm sorry, Mr. Krumbacher, here's the thing. There is science, right? Along with science, there's math. The numbers that are being released, okay, are small. Now listen, I'm not speaking as somebody who believes that COVID doesn't exist. I do. I do not believe it's a hoax. It's nothing like that. But when the percentages involves decimal points and zeros, and now instead of focusing on the education, instead of focusing on what our mission is, we're here discussing a political issue, which this has become, is a shame. We are not doing the best job serving the children of these people here, right now, especially, at least, right? And I think that we should be refocusing on the mission of the school district. This is not the county, this is not the city, this is not the state, this is a school district, and we are not serving the students of this county, we're not serving the families that we should be, and it's a shame that we come here to pull a political stunt with no purpose, no rhyme, other than come in here and discuss something that in 2 days, maybe we have to call into another emergency meeting. This is... Aside from that, we have issues that are coming out regarding the policy that we instituted recently in terms of how the teachers are addressing it, how the school district is addressing it, how the school district is taking names of the students who are in compliance or not in compliance, how everyone involved is doing something else. So,
Mr. Yates, the people in the back, if you could please, and outside in the vestibule, we cannot hear in here with the conversation. If you could please hold down. Thank you. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
this is a waste of time. If those doctors cannot wear masks in their work, then it does not make our kids any safer. That's pretty clear to me. That's a common sense thing. I don't have a doctorate degree in anything. However, I will say that certainly, if I was going to risk my life and go into a room with somebody who had a communicable disease that was going to kill me, I wouldn't go in with a cloth mask. We are failing the people of this county.
Yes.
Not by making medical decisions on behalf of the parents but by failing to do the job that we were elected to do, which is to provide a high-quality education to the 60,000 students of this county. It is not our business to act like doctors or to come in here and do a political show which tells these people that we're protecting your kids with something that offers no protection. The fact is, you do not bring a knife to a gunfight, and that's what these cloth masks are. They are a waste. In fact, if we're gonna have some kind of policy, then along with that policy, we better be providing all of our kids with an N95 mask, which is the only way that we're gonna prevent them from spreading that disease. So I hope that they go hand in hand with one another, because otherwise, this is nothing but a sham.
So first off, I want to start off with some facts. One fact that I didn't have on my paper that the doctor said is that our percentages of infection and positive tests are going down every week since school started. The other statistic I didn't have was that if we have 919 students tested positive and we have 60,000 students, that's 0.015%. The CDC study analyzed 90,000 elementary school students in 169 schools in Georgia, found no significant difference in the schools that required masks compared to those that did not. Dr. Macri of Johns Hopkins Hospital studied 48,000 children under the age of 18, found that the mortality rate among children is 0 without a pre-existing condition such as leukemia. Students have a greater risk of dying on the way to school than they do of dying of COVID. According to the CDC's mortality and morbidity report that was updated weekly, children aged 5 to 14, 0.2% chance of dying of COVID, 0.7 chance of dying by homicide, 1.5 of dying by suicide. That's our real pandemic right there that we need to be looking out for. 0.3 from the flu or pneumonia. So the risk of death is greater from the flu, yet we have never masked or quarantined the first couple months of school when we have pink eye, strep, flu, pneumonia, hand, foot, and mouth, and everything else. Matter of fact, the risk of death by COVID, and this is according to the CDC's report, is equal to the risk of suffocation. We know, though, that masks have a serious toll on mental health. Makes students harder to understand, makes it harder for them to understand what's being said to them. It hinders their ability to empathize with their peers. I mean, God gave us a face for a reason. There's a direct link between children being able to empathize with their peers and their parents and their mental health. From the summer of 2019 to the summer of 2020, there was a 22.3% spike in ER visits from potential suicide for young adults. So why, knowing all this, are we masking children at school? Because I don't think it's to protect the kids. I think it's because we have people at home afraid of catching it from the kids. And if we're going to place that burden on the students, then shame on you. The people that have at home, they've got tools at their disposal. They can get the shot if they want to, or, here's a novel idea, work on boosting their immunity. Or better yet, if they're scared that they're going to get something from their kid, they can mask their kid at home. When the kid gets home from school, slap a mask on them if they're that afraid of their child. The majority of students that I know that are quarantined because an adult at home has it, or an adult at home gave it to them. Not because they're catching it at school. So we need to leave the students alone. This decision that you're making needs to be made using our heads and not our emotions. It needs to be based on facts and not opinions. And it needs to be made remembering that we live in America, and a school board does not need to overreach and infringe on the rights of parents to raise kids the way they see fit. Thank you.
I'm here today to speak out against mask mandates. As you will see in the data that I've provided, numbers and facts say it all. There's probably more deaths of cancer patients and children, leukemia, that sort of nature going on, and nobody's putting those things out. So I pulled this also from a reliable website. I'm going to read it straight from the paper. You know, the doctor didn't even have any clue about this and stated something that was just totally false and misinformation. So many of American peer nations around the world, including the UK, Ireland, all of Scandinavia, France, and the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Italy, have exempted kids with varying age cutoffs from wearing masks in classrooms. Conspicuously, there's no evidence of more breakouts in schools in those countries relative to schools in the US, where the solid majority of kids wore masks for the entire academic year of 2020. and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. These countries, along with the World Health Organization, whose child masking guidance differs substantially from the CDC recommendations, have explicitly recognized that the decision to mask students carries with it potential academic and social harms for children and may lack a clear benefit. To date, the highly transmittable Delta variant has not led them to change their calculus. Many experts spoke with me and told the Delta variant represents a major and concerning new development in COVID pandemic. It probably shouldn't change our thinking on a mask requirement for schools. That comes from all those countries that are not the US. For some reason, the US wants to do everything the opposite of everybody else. But another thing that's also kind of common sense, they wore masks all year in 2020. Doesn't that suppress the immune system and doesn't allow them to breathe in oxygen and nutrients and things that are also traveling in the air that can help build their immune system? That might be causing a lot of the sickness and illness that's going around this year. It's kind of like an infant that goes into a brand new daycare, never been sick right at the age of 2, and then all of a sudden they're coming home with RSV, coming home with the cold, running nose constantly. Why? Because they're missing vitamins, because they're not around other children. They're stuck at home all day with us only and being outside. So guess what? They're going into school, contracting different illnesses, getting sick all the time. I mean, it's just common sense. I don't have to be a doctor with a doctorate's degree to know that. So my finishing speech right now is also something else. It's a historical piece. It's 2,300 years ago, long before Islam. Arabs discovered that forcing people to cover their nose and mouths broke both will and individuality, and therefore depersonalized them. It made them submissive. That's why they imposed on every woman a mandatory use of a fabric over her face. Then Islam turned it into a woman's symbol of submission to Allah, the king and the man of the harem. Modern psychology explains it. Without a face, we do not exist. And as independent beings, I'm almost done, the child looks in the mirror between the ages of 2 and 3 and discovers himself or herself as an independent being. The mask is the beginning of deleting individuality. He who knows not his history is condemned to repeat it. Industrial militia.
I don't know what else to add to what has already been described as oversight by the board. And I appreciate you, John Aguero, for your comments. The one thing that we have to focus on is we don't want to have our kids wearing muzzles all day long. I've listened to your arguments, and I've noticed that they're missing a few things. And namely, that's evidence, data, and science, common sense, but most of all, basic human decency. COVID poses almost no risk to our kids at all. 4.2 million children have tested positive for COVID, a total of 0.008%, with 334 of them dying. It's certainly confirmed also by our guest, Dr. Alexander. 480 kids died of the flu in the 2018-2019 season. That's more than have died from COVID in a year and a half. Now, did anyone on this board ever suggest masks, whether they be the cloth ones that you distributed freely amongst the students, or the N95 masks during that heavy flu season? I don't think that you did. So which is more dangerous, COVID or the flu? It's child abuse, pure and simple. What's happening now to Munchausen by proxy, which is a mental health illness that occurs when someone makes up medical illnesses in a person under their care? What if a parent forced his kid to wear a football helmet all day, every day, for fear of falling coconuts and meteors? If you saw that, you would say he's abusive. The same holds true here. Considering the psychological damage that we are doing to our children by teaching them that the air is toxic, that everyone around them is sick. Hence the reason why the lady over here who discussed the suicide rate increase. Will we be complicit in increased suicide? The psychological impact that it has upon our children. And I ask you, the board, if you accept that liability. I feel as though sometimes you make it to feel better about yourselves and to protect yourselves politically. The child's mask is a symbolic security blanket for you, not them. And that's been proven through data. The sole reason for the militant push to wear masks is to provide only visible indication that there was some kind of event happening. Without people wearing masks everywhere they went, there would have been absolutely zero indication that there was even an alleged virus to begin with. The mask was just a psychological reinforcement tool, a prop, and it served no other function. And that has been confirmed by the doctor that was on the phone. I also wanted to present, and if you're interested in data.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
You're through us up, if you
Thank you very much.
please wrap.
But I do have data to support that the NIH did come out with that supports the masks and why school districts are doing what they're doing. But I appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Before my time starts, let me prepare my workstation.
Jason, while he's cleaning, Jason Dodson will be on deck and up next.
I'll leave this here if anyone else needs it. My name is Mark Peters. I'm at 4315 Beale Court, Kissimmee, 34746. Now, the reason I demonstrated cleaning my workstation, everyone who came up here, either if they wore a mask, they still were touching the surface. They were still doing everything, spitting all this mic like I am doing right now. You guys, when you spoke, even Dr. Pace, some of you, took off your mask, like the attorney, and spoke. We just heard that the doctor said someone infected an entire class just by removing their mask to read. So you guys just did what they're saying not to do. Now, if you want to, just a few weeks ago, or not very long actually, 23rd, it was brought up by a board member to implement a mask mandate with an option, but yet decided that high school did not need it, like all our high schoolers are vaccinated. And we know that high schoolers are susceptible to this virus as anyone else. But yet we made following in the steps of our big brother, Orange County. It seems like we can't make up our mind on our own unless we go what they say. So they made a mandate today, so let's do it too. And that's what we do, we follow in their steps. Why can't we chart our own course? Let me just read what the CDC says here, and Dr. Pace actually put it on the screen before. Due to the circulating and highly contagious Delta variant, CDC recommends. I know you guys are board members and this is a school board, so words, very important. Whenever children take tests, how a sentence is structured, the particular words play a role in how that answer is given. So the word recommends, let me just briefly state what recommends mean. Recommend, dictionary definition, to represent or urge as advisable, to advise as an alternative, to suggest. But you guys want to take a recommendation and make it a mandate. Let me just tell you what mandate means. It has nothing to do with recommend. It says to authorize or decree as the enactment of law, to order or require. So you're changing what the CDC, as someone just stated, the CDC spent $1 billion to make a recommendation. Now let me just say one thing. The CDC also passed a law recently that got actually pulled back because they didn't have a place to pass law, but they ordered the entire nation to not evict tenants who are not paying rent. They ordered because they wanted to protect people. If they wanted to protect us and they say mask is important, wouldn't they order mask as well? But they didn't do that. They recommended because they don't have evidence to back up that mask. By the way, let me just display what mask is. You all are wearing masks, most of you, that are cloth, made by someone that Target sells this. This one here we order online. It comes in different amounts in a box. We pay an average of 50 cents.
Mr. Peter, your time is up if you could wrap it up.
So I just want to let you know that your mandate is not flying.
Thank you.
I just want to speak as a father, as a single father. I'm a paying member of society. I contribute to society. I'm also a good dad. It is my choice, what is best for my daughter. I don't care what anybody says, down from the top all the way down to the bottom. My choice is what's going on with my daughter. You guys don't get that choice, and nobody is allowed to tell me what my daughter's gonna wear at the school. I accepted the fact that we were supposed to wear uniforms, and that was fine, because everybody looks respectful. I agreed with it, but this is too far. You can say what you want to say to the country and to adults, but when you start going after the kids and using that to push your agendas, now I have a problem with that. And I want to remind you where you get your paychecks from. The last time I checked, y'all worked for me. And I want y'all to do what I say to do, not the other way around. And for the record, when condoms and birth control are 100% effective, then I'll start wearing a mask.
Good evening, school board and fellow citizens. Point 1, masks have not and do not protect against COVID. In an interview at 60 Minutes on March 8, 2020, Dr. Fauci said, quote, "There is no reason to be walking around with a mask." In the interview, he pointed out, quote, "Wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better. It might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is." Then he named 4 reasons masks are ineffective against COVID. 1, people keep fiddling with the mask. They keep touching their face. 2, people generally use masks that do not seal around the face and are loose-fitting. 3, people do not wear masks properly or consistently. They keep moving the mask up and down and taking it off and on. 4, masks are often worn, put aside, and then reused. These 4 reasons are still true. Point 2, we are now in the lowest point of mortality in the U.S. since the pandemic began. The CDC on August 7th reports that deaths are at the lowest weekly point since March of 2020, 1,170. You didn't know that, did you? Probably because of the media hype about growing case numbers, overcrowded hospitals, and the raging Delta variant. You probably thought the mortality rate was through the roof. It is not. Point 3, the death of any child is horrific, but kids dying from COVID in Florida is below flu levels. 22 children died in Florida in 2020 from flu. Pediatric deaths from COVID in 2020 and 2021 combined, 15. COVID is the least likely cause of death for kids in the U.S. There is a far greater likelihood that a child will die from a vehicle accident or from a homicide or drowning than will die from COVID. Point 4, a large-scale study published by the CDC found that no statistically significant difference in schools that required students to wear masks compared to schools where masks were optional. Considering these facts, first, you should not be mandating masks for children at all, especially with no parental option to choose. Second, stop perpetuating this evil spirit of fear and anxiety that's swallowing our children.
Your time is up.
I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr.
I am here today because this has been made a political issue. As we can see in this room, all the people that are not wearing masks, we all have signs that say, "Do not mask our children," and the people that are wearing masks made it political. Your eyes can see it behind me. With that said, it is your responsibility to follow the science. Science, common sense says. The boxes say it. This does not prevent from COVID. So why are we wearing masks that say in the boxes they do not prevent from COVID? Have you seen a petri dish, if we're going to go to science, 20 minutes after you wear a mask, rub a Q-tip, put it under the microscope, the amount of bacteria that is accumulated, it is child abuse. To pretend to have our children 8 to 10 hours during school with masks, breathing not only carbon dioxide, growing bacteria from their noses, growing bacteria from their mouths. Carbon dioxide kills neurons. And how do we expect them to learn? How do we expect them to function when we have people that bring recordings of children saying how afraid they are of the mask? That is the spirit of fear. We are instilling fear. And that is part of the education too. If we keep supporting this mask mandate that goes against the governor's executive order, you will be failing the system. Not only that, Florida is one of the few states in the nation that has the Parental Bill of Rights. Have you read it? Most parents don't know that there is a bill, that Florida is one of the few states in the nation that has one. We've had it for 4 years. That bill gives the right to parents to decide medical issues for the children, educational issues for the children, behavioral issues for the children. So why are we here today? Just because Orange County did what they did? We have a very strong community in Osceola County. We support our small business. We know each other. Osceola County is different to so many parts of Florida. So please, I'm here just to call your attention. Let's not get pressured by what everybody else is doing. Osceola County is special, very special. We are a very strong community. Let's keep practicing being community. You guys do what you are paid to do by us. Most of you are very well loved in the community. Please use your heads, use common sense, follow science, and do not let the elite and the pressure, political pressure, make you take some decisions that might cost you your seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
As my son says, my body, my choice. The children that attend schools should have a choice to wear a mask if they want. We should have freedom of choice to wear a mask if we would like. And more children are dying of the flu than COVID. Like the child that was speaking on the phone, she can wear a mask if she wants, but not all children should have to wear one. We should be able to have the freedom of choice.
I am a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. I am not a medical doctor, and I don't believe any of you are. But I do know how to do research. Enough is enough. Take the masks off the children. Just because a person has a PhD or MD behind their name does not mean they have common sense. This board flips and flops more than a fish out of water or Fauci and the CDC. You are confusing our children. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask, and back to wear a mask, or a parent can opt their child out. The children are learning that they can't trust adults. Current mask policy states that it will be in effect until October 4th. I refer to the following doctors. Jeffrey Barkey, MD. Masking children is about power and control, not science. Children are harmed, often severely, from the masks. Children are not harmed by COVID. Doctors are seeing an increased level of anxiety, depression, suicide ideation, learning disorders, and other health problems. A group of moms in Florida took the mask off their children after a few hours and sent them to a local lab for testing, and all kinds of pathogenic disease organisms were found in their masks. The forced mandates of masking children is child abuse. Follow the science. Masks are not working, and vaccines are failing. Children are getting sick because they are living in a petri dish with the masks. The CDC has turned into a political organization, not a science organization. Dr. Daniel Stock states that coronaviruses and respiratory viruses are spread by aerosol particles that are small enough to go through every mask. No one can make this virus go away because you are trying to do something that has been tried and can't be done. The best treatment is natural immunity, since the recovery rate for healthy children under 18 is 99.998%. We have a wonderful immune system created by God. Let it work. Dr. Vladimir Zelenko states that no child should be vaccinated unless you believe in child sacrifice. Dr. Robert Malone, who created the messenger mRNA vaccine, has said that no one should take the jabs under any circumstances whatsoever. Thomas Jefferson said 240 years ago that there is no justification for taking away an individual's freedom in the guise of public safety. Wearing a mask should be a choice, not a mandate. Fear is a liar.
I'm a teacher at Harmony High School, and I've taught in Osceola County for 34 years. I'm here to express my concern as a teacher, a parent, a grandparent, that you all are regarding the mask mandate for everyone. Last year was the most challenging year of my 34-year career. Contrary to what you might think, it was not due to the change in presentation of curriculum, going digital, adding academics. It was due to the lack of relationships created between teachers and their students and their peers. Masking students is a psychological stressor for children. Covering the lower half of the face of both teacher and student reduces the ability to communicate effectively. Positive emotions such as laughing and smiling become less recognizable, and negative emotions become more amplified. In addition, there is no proof or scientific evidence that masks work. Instead, we are allowing another year of diminished education, and we're sacrificing our children's social and emotional well-being so that some adults and elected officials can feel marginally safer. What a shame. Shame on every one of you. In closing, I ask our board members to, at the very least, keep masks optional. This allows those who feel it best to mask up their children to continue to be able to do so, while allowing those who feel it is detrimental to their child's best interest to have the right to be mask-free. And Mr. Osceola, thank you for getting it. And if you need a campaign manager when you're up for re-election, I'm your girl.
Hi, I would first like to define a word for all of you. The word is autonomy. Autonomy means self-government, ruling or managing oneself, independence. The word has lost its meaning as the debate of whether to mask our children or not mask our children continues. I'm not here to claim I'm an expert in science because I'm not, but what I'm an expert in is my own child. Over the last year, we've continued the debate, and I've witnessed more and more autonomy of parents to make the best decisions for their own children to be taken away. When I gave birth to my son 14 years ago, my husband and I were given the freedom to name our son as he grew. We had the freedom to care for our son, mold our son, to educate him freely the way we saw fit as a family. The same goes for all the parents in this room. They all had the freedom to choose for their children what was best. I'm for choice, choosing what is best for our family. How we teach our children to exercise that freedom of choice when you as a school board want to make it for them instead of letting the parents be the ultimate authority. What are we teaching our kids when we take the authority from the parent deciding what is best for the child and placing it in the hands of all 5 of you that want to make that decision? Do you know my child's name? Do you know his birthday? Do you know what his favorite color is? Do you know what he's allergic to? Do you know anything about him? Who comforts my child when he's hurt or advises him when he has a problem? Is it you 5 school board members? No, it's myself and my husband. You don't know my child or the thousands of other children in the school district like you know your own. If you 5 mandate masks for all children without recognizing the parental freedom to choose, you undermine the parents' authority in the eyes of our children. Do you 5 school board members want to have all the kids from the school district answer to you instead of the parents who they've been blessed with by God, their creator?
You're taking the parents' ability to govern their children as they see fit when you place every child in the same box, the box being that all children in Osceola County have to wear masks. I implore of all of you to allow the choice to remain in the parents' hands. If a parent thinks it's the best practice for their child to wear a mask, then you should support it. If the parents think it's the best choice for the parent or the child to not wear a mask, then you should support that. I don't envy your positions and know that I pray for every one of you each week. However, you were elected and chosen to represent your constituents, not rule over them. You all took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and of Florida. The 5 of you cannot care for the health of my child better than my husband or myself. So please do not take on that role. Let's do our job as parents, along with the thousands of other families in Osceola County.
I'm going to speak on behalf of my daughter. I've homeschooled for many years. She wanted to come back to school because she missed the social, she missed the activity, she missed the sports. So I said, fine. We went into school this year. And now the mask mandates come in. That's not fair to her. She shouldn't have to be masked. I shouldn't have to opt out with a medical paper saying she won't have to wear a mask. That's my choice as a parent, if I want her to have a mask on or not. My whole family, I don't know if you guys all had COVID. My whole family has had COVID, except my 9-year-old. My 9-year-old, out of 4 of us, did not catch COVID. I don't live in a $200,000 big old home. We were confined in a small space. My 9-year-old didn't catch COVID. So putting these kids in a mask 8 hours a day is so wrong, and it is child abuse. So wrong. And now I gotta tell my girl, you might not go to school this year. She was heartbroken, she's pissed, and I don't know what else to do for her because she has to wear a mask. If you're that afraid, go to virtual school. You know what? Homeschool. I'm not sending her in a mask. I will pull her out of school and I'll continue to homeschool like I did years before. I'm not doing it. It's not healthy. I'm the person that looks out for her health, not you guys, not the government. The government is doing way worse for us nowadays. So putting the mask on these little guys and taking away all their social skills, and it's just so wrong. So wrong. You know, everyone in there goes out to a restaurant. What do? You go in with your mask on, you sit at the table, what do? You take it off. Now, if you're that afraid of COVID, exactly. Why are you going out in public? Why are you going out in public? Corona, the virus, is so teeny-weeny. The gaps in your guys' masks is going straight through. It's not protecting a darn one of us. But why are we wearing it? Why? Because we're feared, and the government is fearing every one of us. Because we have to wear it. There's monoclonal stations that the great Governor DeSantis has provided his people to get treatment when we get COVID. There's vitamin D, B12, zinc, C, whatever. You don't hear nobody saying that. Nobody's telling us what we should do. Oh, go get the vaccine. Like the vaccines ain't good? That's killing people. That's putting blood clots in people. That vaccine is evil. The government is evil. Ivermectin? What other, hydroxychloroquine?
There's one person speaking. Ms. Fitzgibbons, your 3 minutes is up.
That's great, because I said everything I wanted to say.
America's fallen into a cycle. People literally think there is no care plan or cure for COVID due to the information block that has unexplainably taken place. You cannot beat natural immunity of COVID recovery, proven to be complete and durable. You cannot vaccinate on top of that and make it better. You cannot find asymptomatic spread. It does not exist. If the focus was on the sick patient, which has actually been the case before COVID, it didn't take the path that Fauci, the CDC, and the government had led us. Not masks and vaccines and social distances. The preventable fraction would have been reduced by 85%. Please let that sink in. People have placed a false sense of security on masks. People like to be able to see people doing something. Sorry, but implementing these protocols is simply an action to manage the fear. It has nothing to do with the actual health of our children, nor any representatives working or volunteering on our school campuses. If it were about health, then why not focus on handing out the proper prophylactic care for vitamin D3 and zinc with the same fervor of promoting a vaccine that should never have been for all, never mind our children. The CDC has been funded over $750 million for an ad campaign to promote this vaccine, which has clearly been effective. Notice that the manufacturers are not actually advertising directly, otherwise the possible side effects would need to be listed as well. They are circumventing this requirement by having the CDC do their advertising. Society has been listening to this one-sided representation of information via all of the mainstream media outlets. And what about the $2.3 billion in criminal fines against Pfizer for other drugs that were falsely advertised and were approved by the FDA, and the paying of the kickbacks to government healthcare programs? Each of those vaccine manufacturers have all been sued for their products that were brought to market that they knew would result in injuries and death. Recent reporting demonstrates that the vax actually creates negative efficacy. The vax is designed to prevent a specific variant. Once a mutation comes along, the original vax has no longer recognition. It is as if there is now a whole new virus. Because of this, so you experience more severe symptoms, and the science shows that the vax will actually have more hospitalizations. Make all the necessary steps to stop any mask mandates. Do not then shift or escalate to any sort of mandatory vaccine. With a 99.97 plus survival rate, we need to legitimately return to normal. Many are waiting for somebody else to step up and do the right thing. You are those people in this case. Return to treating us as the healthy people as a whole we generally are. Reground us in common sense and logic. Please stop creating solutions for problems that don't exist. Stop being afraid of what could go wrong and start being excited about what could go right. Thank you.
Staring at Osceola here, I can't help but think that he'd be turning in his grave, but he does have one thing in common with a lot of you here wearing masks. You lost your head. Now, here are the facts. We have a Parents' Bill of Rights here in the state of Florida. If you violate that with any kind of mandate, you are in violation of that Bill of Rights, and we will hold you accountable. Trying to impose any vaccine on a child, or anyone for that matter, teacher, anyone, staff member, you are in violation of the Nuremberg Code. The punishment for violating the Nuremberg Code is death. We killed a lot of Nazis for violating that code. Now, I don't like calling people Nazis because that's very heavy. But if you look like one, you smell like one, you're a Nazi.
Please, that's enough of that. That's not acceptable.
I'm exercising my First Amendment, sir. Now I want to go over, of course the masks are garbage. The virus is way smaller than any cloth. Even N95, it has little vents on the side. There's no way to completely fill any gap. If it's out there, you're going to get it. But what you are doing is breathing in your own waste, your own carbon dioxide, and it can cause bacterial pneumonia. These kids aren't, following the protocol. Hell, even adults aren't following the protocol. I see all of you fiddling with your masks. That's what Dr. Fauci was saying in the very beginning, and he said ever since. It's in the emails. If you fiddle with the mask, you have to take it off and get a new one. That's sterile. Now I'm going to spend the rest of my time, 1 minute and 20 seconds, going over the VAERS database up to date. For the vaccines in the U.S., we have 13,068 deaths, 54,142 hospitalizations, 72,699 urgent care visits, 98,761 office visits, 5,617 cases of anaphylaxis, 4,681 cases of Bell's palsy, 1,607 miscarriages on record, 5,882 heart attacks, 4,861 cases of myocarditis and pericarditis, 17,228 cases of people that have now been considered permanently disabled. 2,738 cases of thrombocytopenia, or a low platelet count. 13,812 life-threatening cases of different varieties. 25,169 severe allergic reactions. 7,080 cases of shingles. And that's just up to date. As far as the Delta variant is concerned, I find it very interesting that a bunch of people got vaccinated, and now that we have this Delta variant, when all of these things, that's my time, so I won't do what others did. Thank you very much for your time.
And this is the only one I'm going to use, 67 school districts last year, 40 of them in Florida. 40 of them had mandates, 27 didn't. The difference in COVID cases between the two was less than 0.5%. Look around this room right now. What do you see? You see people in masks, you see people without masks. You know what's great about that? They have the right to do that. This is America.
That's right.
If you want to wear a mask, you can. I support that fully.
Excuse me, please let
If you don't want to wear a mask, obviously I support that because I don't. But that's what's great about America. You should have the choice to do it. It shouldn't be one side or the other. And the same thing goes for the science. Everybody's throwing out this science and saying, well, especially the side that wants masks, saying, well, this is the science, you have to obey it. There's just as much science on the other side that says that masks don't work, that mandates don't work. Oh, but we ignore that. Is that right? Is just one side's science correct and the other's isn't? This has become a political issue, and it has to stop. You're pushing people and pushing them and pushing them. And they're finally going to start fighting back. We're tired of it. I love the school I put my daughter in. I'm pulling her out if you put this mask mandate in. And you know what? I'm going around and I am going to make sure, I'll find all the other parents who want to do the same, and we'll organize, and we'll pull them out. Because the Hope Scholarship is there for that. And we'll move them to other schools, private schools probably, and guess what will happen? You'll lose money. Your job is to teach these kids. Teachers is job. Your job is to make sure the school district has the money for that. They're not going to have as much money if you put in this mask mandate. Is that helping the kids? Really? I mean, this has just gotten out of hand. I hope some of you have seen what's going on in Australia.
Yeah.
That is scary. And you start with just having a mask mandate. What's next? The vaccine mandate?
Yeah.
Is that next? Because the government keeps on taking more and more freedoms from you. I'm not putting up with it anymore, and I don't think a lot of other people are.
Excuse me.
Keep on poking at the
Y'all been really good for a long time. I don't know why all of a sudden we won't let him finish. We can't hear when you do that, and we're very interested in what Mr. Brinks, as we are with what each one of you have to say. So please let Mr. Brinks finish. Mr. Brinks, you've got another 15, 20 seconds or so.
You keep poking the bear, and we're going to fight back. We're not going to take this anymore. We love, and most of the people who support not wearing a mask, they love Osceola County schools. There's a reason they put their kids in there. But we'll pull them out in a heartbeat if you put this mask mandate in. And I swear I will lead the charge if I need to.
I believe your time.
Thank you.
First, Mr. Thacker, Board, Dr. Pace, thank you all so much for maybe prematurely putting together an emergency meeting, but for at least hearing the voices of the parents that are out here. I want to start by reminding everybody of something. This is about the education of our children. It's the mission, the vision, and the purpose of the School District of Osceola County to inspire learners who are responsible and productive citizens. Citizens of a nation that are governed by laws. Laws. We heard our attorney say earlier tonight, when this whole thing first started, the mask mandate, which really isn't a mandate, there's an opt-out policy, is still in flux in the courts. But what's not in flux is we do have a parental bill of rights that implores you as a school board to listen to, work with, and consult with parents to govern what happens with our students. And there's a lot of folks out here tonight with emotions on both sides of it, and I get it. I'm all about it. I won't get emotional. I'll just talk with facts. This is not about politics. And I pray and beg that we don't catch out of politicians from whatever level who are sending in letters and everything else. Listen to your parents. Listen to the kids. We've heard people stand up here tonight and talk about the kids. I've got a kid in Harmony Middle School. I will tell you, last year was the most difficult year he's ever had of learning. He was successful. He made great grades. But that's because that's his character. There are children that are suffering out there because of masks and they're suffering because they're afraid to go to school. Don't change it. You have passed a policy. You've already passed it. It's good until October 4th. It's got an opt-out clause. People who want to put their children in masks, they have that right. But allow me to have the right as a parent, defined as a person who has legal custody of a child. Allow me to have the right as a parent to decide what is best for my child. Because I know where he stands. I know that when the decision is made, that kid he'll tear up if he has to. But again, don't make him as a 13-year-old make that decision. Because if he's truly a productive citizen of society, he'll boycott, he'll protest. And he'll do what I did when I was 16 years old, my high school teachers went on strike, and he'll stand out front with a picket sign. And I end it with this. If we go down this road, if an offensive and defensive lineman can stand across from each other for 3 hours and hit each other with no mask on, I ask you to consider other options. Give kids some sort of relaxation station where they can take a mask off the same way everyone on the dais has tonight. Give them a chance to breathe. Thank you, sir.
I feel strongly that it's very important to protect all kids, but I kind of feel a little bit like, it's been implied that if you're not for the mask mandate, you don't care about protection. I think it's worth, taking a moment to say that I think that everyone here, while our opinions vary wildly, right? Everyone here is here for the same reason. Everyone wants to do what they think is best for their kids. We just all have different ways that we think that gets done. Every scenario in life has costs and benefits, and I think both sides of that equation need to be defined here in ways that are measurable, shareable, and able to be cross-examined. I've heard some districts enforce the mask mandate out of an abundance of caution. And with all due respect to those fine folks, I think that's a bit of a cop-out. If kids need to show their work at school in math class to get full credit for a problem, I think it only is right that the powers that be show their work in concluding how they arrived at a mandate that forces all kids to wear masks every day, regardless of that kid's set of circumstances and his parents' wishes. Up to this point, no one's really been able to define clearly the benefit of wearing a mask. I know people say, it's helpful, but at the end of the day, if you truly could define it, you would. You would define it with a number. You'd be very specific. I think also a lot of people have very different masks on, and no one has recommended a specific mask over another. And I think if you can't define which mask is better and which mask is worse, then you can't define that they work at all. Because if those numbers truly existed, you should be able to tell me, well, listen, we're going to define it and make sure that we think that the surgical mask is best. We think that the cloth mask is second best. If you don't have that level of detail to make a recommendation as to which is better and which is worse, you don't have enough detail to say that it's a good thing at all. I often hear people say it's just a mask. And that statement seems to imply that there's no cost or downside to wearing one. And I think that there absolutely is. And I think that this district has a responsibility to manage and evaluate and understand those costs. Masks increase the amount of carbon dioxide in that dead space by up to 25%. So I would pose the question to you, if you're going to force kids to wear the mask, what is the level of carbon dioxide in that mask that's acceptable? You need to establish what that is. And then secondly, how are you going to measure that? You're going to test kids for COVID every day. Are you going to measure the amount of carbon dioxide in that mask every day? And what is the level? You have to set the level. And then additionally, if a child meets that level, what's the protocol? What do? We can't ignore these costs because they're inconvenient. I'm getting low on time here. I tend to ramble. I'd like to go on for another 30 minutes or so, but I guess like every child needs something different. You know, the idea of one size fits all, it sounds great, but I think in reality, in life, it tends to be one size tends to fit none. And, you know, I support everyone taking whatever step they deem appropriate to protect their child. You know, all I'm asking for is the same courtesy in return. So I appreciate you all being here. This is my first meeting. It was hard to get here. You're here all the time. I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
I want to apologize for my emotion earlier. It's just, I'm extremely offended when anyone, I don't care what their credentials are or where they come from, can make a relation between what my actions are and the level of love that I have for my own kids. Anybody that can dare tell me that if I don't do what they think is right for my family, that I don't love my kids, it gets personal. That's personal. That's a personal thing for me, very personal thing. I have 5 kids. I love them all very much. And anything that Dr. Alexander said after that, I could barely listen to it, to be honest, and will never understand the logic. To me, it means that that man has very little interest in the health of our kids and a lot of care about what the sound of his own voice. Here's the thing. It's not only Dr. Alexander that doesn't know what's best for our family. Sometimes it's the people behind this dais. Okay, the fact is, we just saw a bunch of speakers come up here, touch that podium, touch their face, touch their mask, touch that podium, get extremely close to that microphone, whether they were for or against masks, but they had little fear. COVID does not know whether you're speaking at a school board meeting or whether you're in a room full of diseased people, but no one had the fear to come up there. In fact, some people, our superintendent, at the very beginning of the meeting, removed her mask to speak to the crowd here so that she can be heard. And I'm not throwing fault, I'm just saying that happens, right? We saw that happen. If, and I'm gonna make this relation, and at least one person on this board will know what this is like. If you believed your life was at stake, you wouldn't remove your mask so that your voice can be heard. And I know this because on a battlefield in Afghanistan, never once did I consider removing my armor plate from my heart so that I could feel less heat or less weight. I wore it because I was refusing to allow myself to have a lapse of judgment that involved my life. And I agree, or I believe that most people are like that. You don't take the things that save your life when you know it saves your life. And if it does save your life, then the people who are leaders in this community, whether they be doctors, whether they be a school board member, whatever their role, they've done a terrible job communicating and proving to us that that saves lives. Otherwise, it wouldn't be up for argument. The CDC recently released a study that showed that there was no statistical difference between masked schools and unmasked schools. That's the science. If everybody's referring to the CDC and we cannot pick and choose what we use, that's what the CDC put out extremely recently. Okay? Using the logic that we've heard today about masks and forcing masks upon people or upon children and saying that only masks across every person makes a difference, then let's make double masking or triple masking optional. If that's the case, then instead of masking my child or masking someone else's child who doesn't want their child to be masked, then we should allow people to put on 3 or 4 masks. And that should override, according to the logic that we're using, any one person's lack of a mask. MIT also did a recent study that proved that 6 feet of social distancing is the same as 60 feet of social distancing because of the industrial air systems. Well, science can be wrong, right? Because at first we social distanced, now we're not. Is that no longer the case? Well, when do we decide when that fact is important or not? And if the fact that somebody can get up there and not be understood because they have a mask on, or our superintendent can't be understood when she has her mask on, then how can we expect our students to learn if their teachers are masked? If they're masked, how are they going to learn? That's our mission. If our speakers can't be heard by an audience with all of this equipment, how are our kids going to be heard? How are our kids going to learn? Kids are being terrorized by irrational adult behavior. And I'm not talking about the people who just have fear here about the disease and how they've been impacted. I completely empathize with that. One of those persons was a friend of mine, and her and I are on opposite ends of the world when it comes to masks. But you know what? I'm not going to fight with her. I'm going to have compassion for her. I'm going to listen to what her opinions are, and I will respect her. And if I walk into her home, sure as hell, I'm going to wear a mask. Because I wouldn't do that to somebody that I care about. And the fact is, we're charged here with taking care of our community, not ourselves. If we continue to teach our kids this level of fear, it will impact them for the rest of their lives. It will far outweigh the impacts of the disease. We need to continue to teach our kids to display the characteristics that we want them to exhibit. And so far, these kids are overcome with fear, and I can't believe that any school board in any level of wisdom would do that to an entire population, a generation of students. Kids go without masks at home, and so do parents. The disease doesn't know whether you're at school or whether you're at home. And like people mentioned, we go to restaurants, but the disease only follows you at your table? How exactly does that work? It's a falsehood. The fact is, if 100 scientists can't come in here and prove to me that something exists, and they can't prove it to 40 or 50% of the community, chances are that's bunk science. Because when you know you're harmed by something, people avoid it. You know, people avoid it. People stop smoking. So we had a product which has been addictive for generations, and people smoked every single day. People were pregnant and smoking cigarettes. We don't do that anymore. Why? Because it has become consensus. We have acknowledged that smoking is bad for your health, and it's addictive. And you know what happened? In the beginning of cigarettes, people were talking about how great it was for your health. Not only should we not be mandating masks, but we also shouldn't be coercing our teachers to take health considerations based on what we want them to do. We should not be imposing our will on our teachers or our educational community to either take vaccines or anything else, and that has happened. And that should, in my opinion, is criminal.
Yes.
And for God's sakes, if we're going to have an emergency meeting, it should be about the state of education and the state of our educators, how they feel marginalized, not about masks. If we're willing to take masks, if you're willing to take your mask off to speak, obviously this is not a life-threatening issue. Nobody would come in here and sacrifice their lives to speak for or against masks. If any of you felt that you were in danger from my unmasked face, you would not have come in here and spoke. When somebody does not feel sufficiently scared of somebody else, when their opinion becomes more important than their health, it's not something that you need to be fearful of. And I'm just absolutely positively not going to be manipulated by the pressure of bringing anybody into this room or this extremely expensive show of theatrics of calling an emergency meeting before the legal issue is even squared away. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's enough. Please let us finish this discussion. I know it's getting late, and I'll just get. Ms. Castillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, everybody who stayed to talk about the issues. I know it's divisive, and I understand and empathize with you. But yes, I was the one who actually called for the vote last time to mandate masks, and I am positive I'm probably going to do it again. And not because I'm listening to Big Brother or because I'm listening to letters that are coming from people who don't live outside of Osceola County, but I'm listening to the people who live in Osceola County, who are parents of students who have been quarantined, who are parents of students who this meeting. Okay. I have a little bit of a different experience, I think, than some of the other board members because I experienced the before time. So when masks were mandated at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a very, very low rate of infection for students. That was a fact. It's published. And I feel very strongly that we should probably mandate masks again for at least 60 days because our children are being infected at a higher rate than they were last year. I know it's unpopular and I'm okay with that. I love the fact that we have 5 board members and I love the fact that we have a community that is so eclectic and is able to respectfully have a discussion. So I love that. But that does not mean that I'm not going to state my opinion and I'm not going to state it strongly. I feel very strongly about the fact that we have to not only protect our students, but we have to protect our staff. We've had people in this very community pass away very recently, and I cannot in good conscience just ignore that because it happens to be unpopular today. So my opinion is, and I'm actually going to move, I know this is not what the meeting was called, I'm fully aware of that, but I am going to move that we do have a mask mandate for all students and staff for Osceola County.
It's a violation of the Bill of Rights. So you're gonna break the law? Are you gonna break the law? Is that what's gonna happen?
I have 5 board members.
On your site on Facebook and have all the parents vote on their own. That is what would be fair.
Excuse me,
And see
ma'am.
who wins on public record. I'm sorry, let me speak because I pay your payroll. I pay tax dollars that pay your checks, and I'm
So do I.
sorry, you let me speak. Everybody should have the right to vote and publicly so that parents can see the percentages go up and see who wins publicly so that every voter can see it. Because we have rights, and then the parents don't have rights, and you can have them here. I'm tired of people running my life. I have plenty of money as my own, and I will be running again. Mr. Back, this election, because just that, I'm gonna have a lot of support from me.
We don't need to do another thing. Since when, what don't you give about, it's your opinion.
Excuse me,
let me say, I'm a lawyer, let me say. It's not your opinion, you represent us.
Excuse me, and we are having a discussion about this. Yes, we can all.
Found out about this emergency meeting.
Are we not?
Trying to get
Yeah.
this thing done,
And I'm a
while the rest
teacher.
of us have no clue
You're
this
not
is
gonna make
happening.
me wear
I'm
a
working
mask.
someone's second.
Can we have a discussion and determine where we're going? You don't know it.
We don't need schools. We can homeschool and homeschool our own kids. We don't need you guys as schools.
I'm assuming you're a Democrat. That means you believe in democracy. I believe we have more than 51% on the opposing side. That's it. We win, you lose. Bye.
Everybody needs to homeschool. It's not hard.
I think the gentleman, you are putting too much of your personal thoughts in this. You're not taking the community as a
I
whole.
apologize, guys. I think we were all very respectful when you
We
spoke.
won't, and this is the time for the board to discuss.
To be clear, I am one board member. Nothing has been decided. The board could decide not to even take into account what I said.
Good.
Excuse me, may I speak?
Excuse me.
Thank you so much for being respectful. As much as I agree that there's a lot of people here for or against a mask mandate, I have probably double that amount of people who are personally talking to me, who live in this district, not outside of this district, and who have given me their personal stories. And I also represent them. I absolutely care about your opinions, and I respect your opinions. I always have.
If they cared so much, they'd be here.
You have the perfect
Mr.
plan in
Chairman.
place right now.
Yes.
You have a choice. That's the way America is. You have a choice. You wear a mask, you cannot wear a mask, you
Sir,
cannot.
excuse me.
That's the perfect
Sir,
plan.
this is the board, Mr.
First of all, you're all adults. Let's all act like that and respect one another. They're only talking now, all right? A motion's been made from the parliamentarian. Mr. Chairman, you now ask, is there a second to the motion?
And I was waiting for a second before we couldn't get there. Is there a second to that motion?
What motion?
Yes.
Just a minute. Will you let us do our business? Is there a second for the motion? The board, I believe, heard the motion. Is there a second? No, there is no second. That motion dies. for lack of a second.
Because it's illegal. Shouldn't have even been considered. Don't do that again. You violated the law by even considering it. It's against the law.
Could you ask him to leave the room?
It's against the law. Well, you just even considered. And I'm glad that you guys didn't violate the law. I'll leave on my own record.
Chairman, let me say one thing. If you read the court order, the judge specifically.
Enjoy your communism, slaves.
If you read the court order, the judge in Tallahassee specifically said the Parents' Bill of Rights was not involved in this issue and was not set up to deal with this issue. He found it unconstitutional for a number of other reasons. So I don't want people to misstate and argue one way or the other. At this point, Mr. Chairman, unless there's a motion by somebody to do something, you then have the status quo as it currently exists.
Terry, Ms. Castillo, are you done?
No, this is what a board does, deliberates.
Agreed.
Thank you.
That's why we're here.
Thank you, board.
That's why we're here. Are you done?
I am done, thank you.
Mr. O'Leary.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna call out School Board Member Castillo. We should not be using the death of one of our employees for political reasons here. To me, that is absolutely shameful. Absolutely, you're calling out somebody who died for a discussion here. That has nothing, it's neither here nor there.
That's out of order.
That's not out of order. That was actually mentioned. She just did that. You don't use people's health issues outside of here to push your own agenda.
Are there any board?
It added absolutely nothing to your argument, and shame on you.
Board, at this point, we have an existing policy in place. Is there any kind of motion or anything that anybody would like to pursue, or do we remain at status quo at this point? Hearing nothing, I would assume it's status quo.
Yeah, the only thing I want to say, Mr. Chairman, because I'm the one that said that motion, the original intent was to wait for that, and then to have that discussion at the end of the 30 days, and then let the data speak from there. And I think that I want to change from there, unless, of course, the governor's order, which is going to have a right to appeal, gets exhausted. So until the governor's appeal gets exhausted completely, whether it's the Supreme Court or not, then I believe that is the appropriate time to rediscuss this. Or at the end of the 30 days that we had originally stated, that we would then look at the data and only analyze the data that exists in Osceola County, not the data that's in Orange County or anywhere else. Let Osceola County school data tell us what direction to go from there.
Mr. Matt, are you good with that?
I'm good with that, yes, sir.
With that, we will remain where we are, and we will adjourn the board meeting. Thank you all very much.
So there it is. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what we do, please consider going to darkdocs.com/shop to help support us by buying a t-shirt, DVD. We have all kinds of fun stuff. You can also make donations at cash.app/darkdocs or paypal.me/sacredowls. Thank you. This is Information Warfare.